What is up, family? Thanks for tuning in again. Have you ever imagined a time when a person's sincerity is judged solely by the thickness of their wallet? I am talking about that feeling of being treated like a queen when you have it all, and then being tossed aside like useless trash the moment a rumor spreads that you have gone broke. Today's story is precisely about Imani, who experienced exactly that. Her husband, along with her mother-in-law, declared their divorce in front of everyone with a satisfied smirk, simply because they believed Imani's family was bankrupt. But there was a massive secret they did not know. Right at the moment the divorce was declared, Imani became the person holding all their professional destinies in her hands. Aren't you curious to know how this exciting twist of fate unfolded? Before we dive into the story, do not forget to hit the like button, subscribe to our channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss another fascinating tale. That morning should have been the start of a pleasant weekend for Imani. The morning sun spilled through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the living room in the luxury townhouse where she lived with her husband, Javante, and her mother-in-law, Ms. Ophelia. In the kitchen, Imani was carefully preparing Ms. Ophelia's favorite breakfast dishes. A comforting bowl of creamy shrimp and grits, accompanied by maple-glazed bacon, was ready to be served. With a radiant smile, Imani carried the tray toward the dining room. "Good morning, Ms. Ophelia. Breakfast is ready. Javante hasn't come down yet," Imani said sweetly to the older woman, who was sitting comfortably on the sofa watching the news on the massive flat-screen TV her son had bought the previous month. Normally, Ms. Ophelia would have responded with a polite smile, praising Imani's cooking or asking about her parents, the owners of the Summit Legacy Group, a highly respected conglomerate in the country. But that morning was different. There was a deathly silence. Ms. Ophelia did not turn her head even an inch. Her eyes were fixed on the TV screen as if she were seeing a ghost. "Ms. Ophelia?" Imani called again, bewildered by her reaction. At that moment, the voice of the news anchor broke the morning silence, getting louder and louder. "Attention viewers, we have shocking news from the business world. The Summit Legacy Group, which until now seemed like an impregnable fortress, has officially declared bankruptcy this morning. The Securities and Exchange Commission has detected alleged large-scale investment fraud involving senior management. Summit Legacy stocks have plummeted to historic lows, and all company assets have been frozen by the banks. Thousands of employees face mass layoffs, and it is reported that the founding family has accumulated a debt of billions of dollars." Crash. The sound of shattering glass made Imani jump. Ms. Ophelia had thrown the tea mug that was on the table onto the floor. Porcelain shards scattered at Imani's feet. The middle-aged woman's face was red with anger, and she was breathing heavily, trying to contain the fury overflowing within her. "Imani!" Ms. Ophelia screamed, with a shrill voice Imani had never heard before. "What is the meaning of this? Explain it to me. Fraud, bankruptcy, ruin?" Imani looked at the TV screen, trying to appear as pale as possible. Inside, she knew this was part of her father's strategy to purge the company of corrupt executives, a secret plan that no one, not even her husband, was supposed to know. But to hide the truth, she had to pretend to be in shock. I don't know, Ms. Ophelia. Yesterday my father told me everything was fine," Imani stammered, trying to touch her mother-in-law's arm to calm her down. "Don't touch me!" Ms. Ophelia brusquely swatted Imani's hand away. She looked at her daughter-in-law with disgust, as if she were dirt stuck to her shoe. "Do you think I am an idiot? The news says assets are frozen. Billions of dollars in debt means your parents are now beggars. Do you know what that means for Javante? Your husband's career could be ruined because of a scammer father-in-law." In the height of the commotion, Javante came down yawning from the upstairs floor. Just waking up, he was surprised to see the broken glass on the floor and his mother standing over Imani with her hands on her hips. "What's going on, Mama? Why all this noise so early? The neighbors are going to hear us," Javante asked with a sleepy voice. Ms. Ophelia immediately ran to her son and grabbed him dramatically by the shoulders. "Javante, you have to see the news. Your wife's family are scammers. The Summit Legacy Group has gone under. They are completely ruined. They have debts of billions, and the feds are looking for them." Javante's eyes went wide. The sleep vanished in an instant. He looked at Imani with disbelief and then shifted his gaze to the TV, which was still showing headlines about the fall of the Summit Legacy Group. "Imani, is this true?" Javante's voice trembled, not with sadness, but with panic. All this time, Javante had always felt secure and proud to be married to a tycoon's daughter. He often bragged at the office that his position was secure thanks to his father-in-law's connections. Imani lowered her head, fidgeting with the hem of her simple house dress. "I haven't been able to contact my father yet, baby, but it looks like the news is true." Javante ran a hand roughly down his face, let out a huff of frustration, and then looked at Imani with a coldness that froze her blood. "Damn it. With this, my promotion plan for next month goes down the drain. The director is going to think twice before promoting the son-in-law of a crook." "Baby, how can you say that? We don't know the truth yet, and besides, this is a misfortune for our family." Imani tried to defend herself, hoping for a minimum of moral support from her husband, but that hope was in vain. Ms. Ophelia interrupted Imani immediately with sarcasm. "Misfortune? This is an embarrassment. Javante, listen to me good. From now on, don't be too nice to her. The money you were giving her for her expenses? Cut it off. Who knows if her family will come asking us to pay their debts? We cannot let them drag us into their ruin." "Mama is right." Javante nodded quickly, without hesitating for a second. He looked at Imani harshly. "Imani, starting today, give me back the additional credit card I gave you. I'm going to cancel all of them. We have to save money. I don't want to get wrapped up in your family's mess." Imani's heart sank. Barely 5 minutes after the news, the true faces of her husband and mother-in-law had come to light. All their kindness and affection were reduced to the balance of her father's bank account. When those figures disappeared, so did the respect for her. "But baby, that is the money I use for the house expenses," Imani murmured. "Shut up," Ms. Ophelia shouted. "You still have the nerve to talk back? Know your place, Imani. Now you are nothing more than the daughter of a bankrupt family living for free in my son's house. You should be grateful Javante doesn't kick you out to the streets right now. Now clean up this glass. I don't want Javante to hurt his foot because of your carelessness." Javante did not defend his wife. Instead, he turned around, sat on the sofa, and massaged his temples as if he were the biggest victim of the situation. "Clean it up fast, Imani. This mess is giving me a headache. I don't even have an appetite for breakfast anymore." Fighting back tears with great difficulty, Imani crouched down and, with trembling hands, picked up the pieces of glass one by one. The pain of the wound in her heart was much sharper than the edge of the glass that could cut her fingers. Behind her back, she heard Ms. Ophelia whispering to Javante, "Javante, thank goodness you didn't buy that new car yet. Save that money. Who knows if she'll ask you for money soon to pay for her father's lawyers. Not a dime for them. Understood?" "Yeah, Mama, I ain't stupid. I'll call my lawyer later to ask about separating assets just in case some lien comes our way," Javante replied coldly. Imani squeezed a piece of glass in her palm until she made a small cut. A drop of blood welled up, but the pain helped her focus. "All right, Javante. All right, Miss Ophelia," Imani promised herself internally. "If this is your true face when I'm down, don't expect to see mine when I get back up." That morning, in the luxurious but freezing living room, Imani learned one thing. Their love had a price tag, and fate had just ripped that tag off by force. A week after the news of the bankruptcy, the atmosphere in the house had turned into a small hell for Imani. There were no more cordial greetings or kisses on the forehead when Javante left for work. In their place were only hurtful shouts and brusque orders. That morning, Javante shouted his wife's name from the bedroom as if calling a servant. "Imani, why isn't my shirt ironed for work? What do you do all day in this house? Just because you were a rich girl before doesn't mean you can't do a simple task right." Imani rushed in with the freshly ironed navy blue shirt in her hand. Her heart ached, but she tried to force a smile. "I'm sorry, baby. It's just that your mother wasn't feeling well and asked me to make her some chicken soup, so I had to split my time." Javante snatched the shirt from her hands without a word of thanks. His face was tense and full of discontent. Excuses. Listen to me good, Imani. From now on, you have to start knowing your place. Before, I could tolerate your whims because your father gave our company a lot of projects, but now your father is just dead weight from the past. So, if you want to stay in this house, be a useful wife, not just a decoration. Those words flowed with astonishing ease from the mouth of the man who, once at the altar, had sworn to protect her in richness and in poverty. Imani swallowed hard, containing the pain in her chest. She wanted to scream that her father was not stupid, that on the contrary, he was cleaning out the internal traitors so the Summit Legacy Group would rise stronger. But she had to stay silent. The mission was not over yet, and she had to see how far her husband's mask reached. Before leaving for work, Giovante disdainfully threw a few $50 bills onto the dresser. The bills scattered onto the floor. "This is for the month's groceries. Manage it well." Imani picked up the money with trembling hands, and her eyes went wide. "For a month, baby? This is only $300. How am I going to cover food for 3 people, the light bill, the water, and your mother's medicine?" Normally, Giovante interrupted her while fixing himself up in front of the mirror. He combed his hair neatly and sprayed on expensive cologne. "That was when you brought good luck. Now you bring bad luck. And since you cook well, be a little creative. Instead of buying steak every day, you can buy beans or rice. Eating greens daily is healthy, too. If it's not enough, earn it yourself. Sell your expensive clothes or those designer bags filling the closet. Stop being a parasite living off her husband." Giovante left without saying goodbye, leaving Imani with the bills in her hand, stunned. Tears almost welled up, but she wiped them quickly upon hearing a car horn in front of the house. It wasn't Giovante's, but a brand-new red sports car, owned by a guest of Ms. Ophelia. That afternoon, Ms. Ophelia received a special visitor. It was Azaria, the daughter of a friend from Ms. Ophelia's church club, recently back from overseas. Her appearance contrasted sharply with Imani's, who, by her husband's order, now only wore faded house clothes to save money. Azaria wore a designer dress, a handbag that cost as much as a sports car, and her perfume permeated the entire living room. "Oh, Ms. Ophelia, your house is so cozy. Giovante is such a successful man to have a townhouse like this, but it is a little hot. Don't you have the AC on?" Azaria asked with a sweet voice, fanning her face with a hand loaded with gold jewelry. Ms. Ophelia looked sideways toward the kitchen, where Imani was preparing drinks, and said with a sneer, "You know, Azaria, we are saving money. Since we have a parasite in this house, one has to watch the finances. Hey, Imani, are those drinks coming anytime soon? The guest is thirsty. Don't drag your feet." Imani came out with a tray of cold sodas and placed them on the table. Azaria examined her up and down with a contemptuous look, as if she were appraising a second-hand item. "Oh, so this is Giovante's wife. Her name is Imani. What a pity, Auntie Ophelia. I heard her family is in very serious legal trouble, to the point of bankruptcy. So stressful, right? And, of course, Giovante has to carry that extra weight." Azaria spat out while sipping her soda with indifference. "Yes, Azaria, child, a headache. That is why I am glad you came. Giovante will love to know that a woman as sophisticated and independent as you is in the house, right? One who doesn't bring shame to the family." Ms. Ophelia said between giggles, deliberately creating an atmosphere in front of her daughter-in-law. When Giovante arrived home from work late that night, the mood in the house changed drastically. Giovante, who usually returned with a tired and angry face, seemed more lively today. It turned out Ms. Ophelia had told him over the phone that Azaria had brought him an expensive gift, a luxury watch she had bought in Switzerland. "Wow. Thank you, Azaria. What a detail. This is my dream watch, the one I wanted to buy but hadn't been able to yet," Giovante said with shining eyes and a wide smile. A smile Imani hadn't seen in a long time, one that used to be exclusively for her. Now he was gifting it to another woman for a simple watch. Giovante, Azaria, and Ms. Ophelia chatted animatedly in the living room, laughing out loud as if they were a happy and harmonious family. Imani could not join the conversation as Ms. Ophelia ordered her to stay in the kitchen. "You smell like garlic. Azaria has a very sensitive nose, and it's going to bother her. That was her mother-in-law's cruel excuse. While clearing the table after dinner, Imani had to eat only the leftovers, since Jovante and Azaria had finished the main dish of grilled shrimp. It was then that she saw Jovante's phone on the small table next to the TV. Jovante was walking Azaria and his mother to the door. The phone screen lit up with a WhatsApp notification. The contact name was Azaria Beautiful. Driven by curiosity and a strong gut feeling, Imani gathered her courage and approached to glance at the notification on the lock screen. Her heart pounded as she read the brief but devastating sentence, "Jovante, thanks for your time tonight. The watch looks even better on you. It's a shame an amazing man like you has such a mediocre and bland wife. When are we doing dinner? Just the two of us." Auntie Ophelia agrees. "She says it'll be good for you to clear your head." Imani's blood ran cold. Before she could put the phone back in its place, Jovante walked back into the house. He saw Imani standing near his phone with a tense expression. Panicked, Jovante snatched the phone from the table. "What are you doing snooping on your husband's phone? Don't you have manners?" Jovante shouted. He seemed nervous, but quickly masked it with feigned anger. Imani looked deeply into her husband's eyes, searching for some crack of conscience that might remain. "Azaria proposed dinner, and your mother said it's okay for you to go." Jovante went silent for a moment, and then sketched a cynical and defiant smile. "So what? It's normal. I need to have fun. At home, I only hear about your family's problems and debts that stress me out. Azaria is fresh air. She is successful, rich, and has good contacts. She can help me in my career, unlike you, who are now just a financial burden." "So you are going to have an affair. Jovante, have you forgotten our marriage vows?" Imani asked with a trembling voice, holding back tears. "Watch your mouth. This isn't an affair. It's called networking, building relationships. And hey, if you don't like it, the door is open. But remember, you don't have $1 to your name. What are you going to do, sleep on the street?" Jovante mocked before entering his bedroom and slamming the door shut. Imani remained paralyzed in the dark living room, the humiliation soaked down to her bones. That night, under the dim moonlight, Imani did not cry. She roughly wiped her tears, went to the bathroom, and locked the door. She pulled out an old burner phone she had hidden behind a stack of clean towels. With steady fingers, she typed a short message to Mr. Langston. "Mr. Langston, please speed up the acquisition process. Prepare the data on Jovante's embezzlement at the branch you suspected. I want him to fly as high as possible, to feel like a king before I crash him into the ground myself and shatter him to pieces." Imani looked at herself in the mirror, her face tired, but illuminated by eyes full of determination. The role of the battered wife was becoming increasingly interesting, and she would play it to perfection until the final act. Sunday, which should have been a day of peace, was chaos again. That morning the door burst open without a knock. Devante, Jovante's younger brother, known for being a family leech and a slacker, walked in like he owned the place. With dirty sneakers, he threw himself onto the living room sofa Imani had just tidied up. "Yo, Imani, make me a strong coffee, not too much sugar. I don't want to end up diabetic like rich folks," Devante shouted, putting his feet up on the coffee table. The mud from his sneakers dirtied the tablecloth Imani had just changed. Imani, who was sweeping the floor, took a deep breath. Since the news of her family's bankruptcy broke, Devante, who used to call her pretty sister-in-law, now addressed her as if she were his errand girl. Imani put down the broom and approached. "Devante, can you take your feet down? Jovante doesn't like the table getting scratched or dirty," Imani said in a quiet but firm voice. Devante huffed and slammed his feet down, making noise on purpose. "Man, who do you think you are? Just because you were a rich girl before? Go on, get me that coffee and give me some money. I need about $100 to fix my car. My brakes are shot." Imani's eyes went wide. $100 was almost half the monthly budget Jovante had given her the day before. Devante, I'm sorry, but I don't have that kind of money. Devante gave me just enough for food and bills. Ask him directly. Upon being rejected, Devante's face turned red. He stood up and pointed at Imani. Excuses. I know you got money stashed away. A tycoon's daughter doesn't end up with nothing overnight. You aren't being a little stingy with your brother-in-law, are you? That's why your husband has bad luck, because his wife is tight-fisted. Really, Devante, I don't have money. Imani defended herself. The commotion made Ms. Ophelia come out of her room. The middle-aged woman appeared still in her pajamas and with a furrowed brow. What is this racket? You all are going to give me a headache this early. Seeing his mother, Devante changed his expression to one of a victim, like a soap opera actor. Mama, look at her. I asked her for a little money to fix the car brakes and she insulted me. She called me a parasite, a waste of society who only knows how to beg. And even though if I don't fix the brakes, it's dangerous. What if I have an accident, Mama? Devante complained, twisting the facts with mastery. Ms. Ophelia's eyes locked immediately onto Imani. Without asking or verifying, she grabbed Imani's arm and gave her a hard pinch. Ouch, that hurts, Ms. Ophelia, Imani exclaimed, surprised. What hurts? What hurts more? This or my son's heart? Hey, Imani, you are living here on borrowed time. Devante is your husband's brother, blood of this family. How dare you call him a parasite? The parasite is you! Ms. Ophelia shouted right in Imani's face. But Ms. Ophelia, Devante is lying. I didn't say that. I only told him the budget Devante gave me is very tight. Silence, Ms. Ophelia interrupted her brusquely. I don't want to hear your excuses. Give him the money he's asking for right now, and if necessary, sell those gold earrings you're wearing. Why do you want to wear jewelry anyway? How stingy are you not to help your brother-in-law? If Devante finds out you are like this with his brother, he'll kick you out today. Imani touched her ears. Those small earrings were a keepsake from her late grandmother, the only modest jewelry she kept, not for its value, but for the memory. But seeing Ms. Ophelia's ferocious look and the malicious smile of victory on Devante's face, Imani knew she had no other choice if she wanted to maintain her position in that house for her grand plan. With trembling hands and a broken heart, Imani took off the earrings. Here, Devante. Sell them. If there's anything left over, give it back to me to buy rice. Devante snatched them quickly, his eyes shining with greed. That's how I like it. Now you're being a good sister-in-law, and whatever is left over, I'll keep for transport. I ain't walking to the pawn shop. Devant left without saying thank you, tossing the earrings in the air and whistling happily. Ms. Ophelia looked at Imani with a sneer and spat discreetly on the floor. Useless. Clean this floor and make something good to eat. Devante will be hungry when he gets back. Ms. Ophelia went back to her room and slammed the door. Imani stood alone in the empty living room. A tear rolled down her cheek, but she wiped it immediately. She could not afford to be weak. She reached into the pocket of her house clothes for her burner phone and slipped away to the quiet back porch behind the house where no one could see her. She quickly dialed Mr. Langston's number. "Talk to me, Mr. Langston," Imani whispered. Her voice was cold and sharp, very different from the submissive tone she showed her mother-in-law. "Yes, Madam President, I await your orders." Mr. Langston's deep voice was heard on the other end. "Mr. Langston, prepare a full report on Devante's online gambling debts. I also need his criminal record, including the fraud incident with a friend's motorcycle that Devante covered up with company money last year. Gather all the evidence." "I have it already, madam. The documents are in my personal safe. Devante's external debts amount to $50,000, and 3 loan sharks are looking for him. Do you want me to give them Ms. Ophelia's home address right now?" Mr. Langston asked. Imani sketched a slight smile, a smile tinged with danger. "Not now, Mr. Langston. Have patience. Let him enjoy the money from my grandmother's earrings. I want to see his face when he realizes this stingy sister-in-law holds the key to his jail cell. Focus on the stock acquisition. What percentage are we missing?" "We have 5% left from minority shareholders, madam. By tomorrow morning, the operation will be closed. Summit Legacy Group will officially become the majority shareholder of Global Solutions, Inc." Excellent. Make it flawless, Mr. Langston. Imani hung up. She looked at the sky that was starting to cloud over. Inside that house, they treated her like trash, but outside, she was weaving a giant web to catch everyone who had hurt her. Imani went back inside the house, grabbed the broom, and continued her Cinderella role, waiting for the right moment to transform back into a queen. That day was the most awaited for Ms. Ophelia, but a nightmare for Imani. Since dawn, the house was a hive of activity. Ms. Ophelia had decided to organize her monthly brunch with her social circle. Normally, she would have hired a catering service and 2 maids to handle everything, but this time, under the excuse of feigned saving, the entire burden fell on Imani's shoulders. Imani, don't let the stew burn, and mop the living room floor again. I saw some dust in a corner. What an embarrassment if my friends saw it, Ms. Ophelia shouted from the living room. She was busy choosing her best dress and trying on all kinds of gold necklaces in front of the mirror. Imani, who was stirring a thick stew in the kitchen, couldn't help but sigh. Her house clothes were already soaked in sweat. She hadn't showered or eaten yet and felt her feet swelling from standing since 4 a.m. She had to prepare beef stew, jambalaya, potato salad, and a fruit salad for 20 guests. Yes, Ms. Ophelia, it's almost ready, Imani replied with a hoarse voice. Shortly after, a luxury sedan pulled up in front of the house. Azaria stepped out elegantly, dressed in a pastel silk dress matching her heels. She brought a small box of pastries from a famous bakery, not to help, but as a mere symbolic gesture. Hi, Auntie Ophelia. Oops, I think I arrived too early. I came to help you, Azaria greeted with a falsely sweet voice. Ms. Ophelia's face lit up. She hugged Azaria and kissed her on both cheeks. Oh, my future daughter-in-law. You are such a worker. Don't worry, child. You sit right here, gorgeous, and talk to me. The one back there will handle everything. Imani, coming out of the kitchen with a tray of crystal glasses, heard the conversation perfectly. Her heart felt a stab. From unwelcome to a label worse than a maid. That was how fast her status had changed. At 10 a.m, the guests started arriving. The living room, cool thanks to the AC at full blast, filled with the smell of expensive perfumes. The laughter of the high society ladies resonated as they talked about designer bags, trips to Europe, and their club meetings. Imani went back and forth from the kitchen to the living room, refilling snack bowls, serving drinks, and immediately removing dirty plates. While Imani was serving fruit salad into one of the guests' glasses, Ms. Lucille, a chubby woman with gold-rimmed glasses who lived in the next neighborhood over, stared at her. Hey, isn't this Imani, Ophelia's daughter-in-law? Ms. Lucille asked loudly, making the conversation in the room stop for a moment. All eyes focused on Imani, who stood uncomfortable with the pitcher of fruit salad in her hand. Ms. Ophelia's face tensed for a second, but she quickly changed her expression to a sarcastic and contemptuous smile. She fanned herself with an arrogant air. Ah, yes, it's her, poor thing. Her family is completely ruined. You know, her father has debts of billions, so as the good mother-in-law I am, I let her stay here. Better than sleeping on the street, right? In exchange, she helps with the housework. That way, I save the maid's salary, which isn't bad. At those words, a murmur of false compassion arose among the guests. Oh, Ophelia, what a good heart you have. I wouldn't have accepted a scammer's family. I'd be scared they'd infect me with bad luck, spat a guest dressed in red. Yeah, be careful. Don't let her steal something from the house to pay her father's debts, added another. Imani bit her lower lip hard enough to hurt. She gripped the handle of the pitcher so her hands wouldn't shake. She wanted to pour the fruit salad over their heads, but she remembered Mr. Langston's instructions. Hold on, Madam President, let them fly high. In the middle of the situation, Azaria stood up suddenly and affectionately took Ms. Ophelia's arm. She smiled kindly at the guests as if she were the true hostess of the house. Auntie Ophelia has the heart of an angel, ladies. That's why I love her and Giovante so much. Oh, by the way, try the pastries. I brought them especially for Auntie's gathering, Azaria said, hogging the spotlight. Wow, now this is a future daughter-in-law worthy of Ophelia. Pretty, rich, and polite. She makes a perfect couple with the successful Javante, Ms. Lucille praised. Ms. Ophelia smiled with pride and patted Azaria's hand. We pray it will be so, friends. One must look for the best, not what looks like gold and then turns out to be tin. The hint was clearly directed at Imani. Without saying anything, Imani turned around and went back to the kitchen. Behind the wall, she leaned against the cold surface and took a deep breath to calm the storm in her chest. Her tears had already dried. The pain in her heart had turned into fuel for a burning fire. Through the crack of the kitchen door, she saw that Javante had come home for a moment for lunch. Far from defending his wife, who was the center of criticism, Javante greeted his mother's friends kindly and sat next to Azaria. They laughed together with complicity, as if Imani did not exist in this world. Imani, where is the stew? The guests want to eat. Don't drag your feet. Ms. Ophelia's shout from the living room interrupted Imani's thoughts. Yes, Ms. Ophelia, it's ready, Imani replied dryly. She lifted the heavy pot with the hot stew. It weighed a lot, but not as much as the weight of the humiliations she had received today. Imani went out and served the food on the buffet table. She kept her head held high. She served food to each of them, putting rice on their plates, serving the sides like a restaurant waitress. But in her mind, Imani was on a countdown. Every laugh of Ms. Ophelia, every sarcastic look from Azaria, every gesture of indifference from Javante was recorded in the memory of her revenge. Eat up, ladies and gentlemen, Imani thought to herself as she watched them devour the food she had prepared. Enjoy this luxury and this arrogance, because soon you won't even be able to afford the plate you are eating off of. That day, Imani learned that there is nothing crueler than a family that betrays you. But she also knew there is no revenge sweeter than watching your enemies fall from the highest peak they prided themselves on. The sun had not yet reached its zenith, but the heat inside the house was suffocating, a reflection of the endless tension. Imani stood in front of the mirror in her modest room, adjusting an old white shirt that was beginning to lose its color. She had deliberately chosen the simplest clothes, even looking poor, to hide the true purpose of her day. She wore her hair tied back carelessly and a thin layer of powder to hide the dark circles from lack of sleep. When she grabbed her old canvas tote bag and left the room, Javante's voice reached her from the living room. Her husband was calmly reading the financial newspaper with a cup of coffee on the side. "Where are you going? Wandering around since morning and the housework still isn't done?" Javante asked, without taking his eyes off the paper. Imani stopped for a moment, breathing deeply, so her voice sounded convincing. "I'm going out for a moment, baby, to see an old friend, to see if someone can lend me some money for this month's expenses. The money you gave me went almost entirely to your mother's lunch preparations." Hearing the words borrow money, Javante folded the newspaper sharply. He looked at Imani with sharp, threatening eyes. His handsome face contracted with fear of embarrassment. "Listen to me good, Imani. Don't embarrass me," Javante snapped, standing up and approaching his wife. His index finger pointed right in front of Imani's nose. "If you even think about going to beg from my coworkers or my partners, don't you dare mention my name. If they ask, say it's a personal matter of yours. I don't want my brilliant career tarnished by a begging wife." From the kitchen, Ms. Ophelia appeared with a jar of cookies. Her mouth was busy chewing, but her eyes looked at Imani with contempt. "Your husband is right. Don't go around using our family name to get pity. If you want to beg, go with your family of scammers. Don't drag Javante into it. And remember, Azaria has a lot of contacts. If she finds out you're out there asking for money and making Javante look bad, I swear you'll deal with me." Imani lowered her head to hide the fury shining in her eyes. "Yes, baby. Ms. Ophelia understood. I won't mention your names. I'm leaving now." Without waiting for more of a response, Imani hurried out of the house. The scorching sun burning her skin was not as hot as the burning in her heart, hearing the words of the man who was supposed to protect her. But as soon as she left the residential complex, Imani's steps became firmer. She walked a considerable distance to a convenience store on the main street. In a somewhat secluded parking lot next to the store building, a black luxury sedan with tinted windows waited. It wasn't a taxi, but a high-level executive vehicle from the Summit Legacy Group. Impossible to trace. Imani knocked twice on the back window. The door opened automatically. The cool air conditioning brushed her face, in contrast to the street dust. Inside, Mr. Langston, impeccably dressed in a suit, was sitting with a laptop and a stack of red folders on his knees. "Good morning, Madam Imani." Mr. Langston greeted with a slight bow, even while seated. "Get in, please." As soon as Imani got in the car and closed the door, her posture changed instantly. Her hunched shoulders were now straight. Her previously dull gaze became sharp and authoritative. "What is the status of the situation, Mr. Langston?" Imani asked bluntly. Her voice was firm and dignified. Mr. Langston handed her a tablet. "As you ordered, the acquisition process of Global Solutions, Inc. shares through our shell company has reached 95%. With your signature on this document, the acquisition will be legally complete. The moment you sign, you will legally become the sole owner of the company where your husband works." Imani took the luxury fountain pen Mr. Langston offered her. She stared at the documents for a moment. There, clearly written, was the amount of a transaction so colossal that Giovante and Ms. Ophelia couldn't even imagine it in their entire lives. With a quick and decisive movement, Imani signed. "Done." "When is the official announcement?" Imani asked. "Is it scheduled to coincide with the shareholders' meeting next week? However, I have additional information that might interest you, madam," Mr. Langston said, opening another red folder. "What is it about?" "Our audit team has found suspicious fund flow in the marketing department, led by Mr. Giovante. There was an inflation of the promotion budget by $200,000 last month. Those funds were transferred to a third-party account in the name of a certain Azaria." Imani's eyes narrowed, and her jaw tensed. "So the money he used to gift her a luxury watch and entertain my mother-in-law was embezzled money he gave to Azaria to launder." "Correct, madam. We have the evidence. If you wish, we can report him to the police right now for embezzlement." Imani smiled coldly, a terrible smile. "Not now, Mr. Langston. That would be too easy. Keep that proof as an ace up the sleeve. Let him believe he is the best. Let him believe Azaria is a rich savior goddess. I want to see his face when he realizes the woman he prided himself on was actually the recipient of his own stolen money." The meeting was brief but productive. After plotting the next strategy, Imani got out of the luxury sedan. She walked back home with her old tote bag as if nothing had happened. When she arrived home, it was already late, and Giovante was sitting on the terrace smoking a cigarette. Seeing Imani return empty-handed and looking tired, he mocked her. "How did it go? Did you get the money? Seeing your empty bag, looks like nobody lent to you." "Who's going to trust the daughter of a crook?" Giovante said with a sneer, blowing cigarette smoke in her face. Imani stopped in front of her husband, looking at him with an indecipherable expression. "I didn't get it, baby. My friends are having a hard time, too." "Useless," Giovante spat. "Go inside and run a bath for my mother. My head hurts more just seeing your face." Imani went in without replying. In her mind, she whispered a promise. "Enjoy your cigarette and your insults this afternoon, Giovante, because soon you will be begging at my feet to let you breathe in peace." That afternoon passed as usual in Giovante's family home, full of orders and insults. But they didn't know the servant they were humiliating had just bought their future with a single signature. The atmosphere at dinner that night was even colder than usual. The only sound filling the silence was spoons hitting plates. Finally, Ms. Ophelia dropped her spoon brusquely onto the table. She looked hatefully at Imani, who was removing the chicken bones left on Giovante's plate. "Giovante, how long are we going to have to live like this, saving pennies?" Ms. Ophelia asked suddenly. Her voice was sharp and piercing. Giovante, who was chewing the last bite, stopped. He swallowed with difficulty. "What do you mean, Mama? I'm working hard." "No matter how much you work, it's useless if in this house there is a parasite eating up the assets," Ms. Ophelia said, pointing at Imani with her chin. Imani, stacking dirty dishes, said nothing. Her heart burned, but her hands kept working. Ms. Ophelia turned her chair to face Giovante directly. Her face was serious. There were no more beatings around the bush. "Listen to me good. Today, Azaria called me. She says her father is looking for a partner for a new real estate project in Martha's Vineyard. It is a multi-billion-dollar project, Giovante, and Azaria said she could recommend you to be the director of that project. But," Ms. Ophelia paused to leave Giovante on edge. "But what, Mama?" Giovante asked with enthusiasm. A billion-dollar project meant a huge commission, a shortcut to living luxuriously like before again. "With the condition that your civil status is clear," Devante said suddenly, playing with a toothpick. "What she means is that Sister Azaria doesn't date married men. She wants something secure. If you stay tied to this one to Amani, that project will go to someone else." Giovante went silent. He looked sideways at Amani, who was now back turned to them at the sink. The back he had once hugged now seemed so fragile and pathetic. There was no benefit left to squeeze out of Amani. "But Mama, if I divorce now, what will people at the company say? That I abandoned her just when my father-in-law went broke? They'll label me a traitor husband." Giovante hesitated. Not for love, but for his image. He feared his reputation would be stained. Ms. Ophelia let out a loud laugh, got up from the chair, approached Giovante, and grabbed him tightly by the shoulders. "Forget the gossip, Giovante. The people at the company don't feed you. They don't pay your car note. The only thing that can save us is money, and that money isn't with this pauper. Azaria has it." Ms. Ophelia pointed at Amani's back again. "What can she give you? Only debts and shame. Azaria promised me that if you marry her, she will give Devante $100,000 capital to open a shop, and she will buy me a new commercial space to start a catering business. Are you going to sacrifice your mother and brother's future out of pity for her?" The words capital and commercial space tore down Giovante's last defense. He imagined a comfortable life with Azaria, a new car, luxury vacations, and a high position. Compared to Amani, who could now only offer him stew and a somber face, his choice seemed very clear. "So, you want me to divorce Imani?" Giovante asked in a low voice. "It's not that I want to. It's that you must," Ms. Ophelia said firmly. "I give you an ultimatum. Either you choose a bright future with your mother and Azaria, or you stay living forever in poverty with this woman who brings bad luck. If you choose her, I will leave this house." That threat was Ms. Ophelia's ace up the sleeve. Giovante could never disobey his mother. He let out a long sigh, and his gaze turned cold and hard as stone. He looked at Amani's back, still standing silently in the kitchen. "All right, Mama, I'll prepare the divorce," Giovante said firmly. Crash! A plate fell from Imani's hands into the sink. Her hands trembled so much hearing that decision that she dropped it unintentionally. Giovante walked over to the kitchen and stood right behind Imani. "Did you hear that, Imani?" Giovante's voice was flat, without emotion. Imani turned around. Her face was wet, not from tears, but from splashes of water from the faucet. She looked at her husband with an indecipherable expression, a mix of disappointment and relief. "You are going to divorce me, baby? Just for money?" Imani asked quietly. "Don't be naive, Imani. In life you don't just live on love, you need money," Giovante replied brusquely. "I am sick of a hard life. I am sick of seeing your face that reminds me of your father's failure. So get ready. Next week we will hold a family meeting. I will announce our divorce officially in front of everyone to make things clear." "In front of everyone? Is it necessary to make a spectacle?" Imani asked defiantly. "Of course it is," Ms. Ophelia shouted from the table. "Let everyone find out that my son has freed himself from the chains of a scammer family. While we're at it, we invite the whole family and throw a little celebration party, a party to chase away the bad luck." Imani nodded slowly, very slowly. She did not throw herself at Giovante's feet, begging like Ms. Ophelia expected. Her calm attitude even unsettled Giovante a little, but he dismissed that feeling. "All right, if that is what you all want," Imani said. "Do what makes you happy. Invite everyone, and invite Azaria too, if you want her to see with her own eyes how you treat someone who no longer serves you." "Oh, of course Azaria will come. She is the guest of honor," Devante said with a mocking smile. That night, the decision was made. The sentence was handed down. Imani went into the small guest room where she had been banished to sleep for the last week. She sat on the edge of the thin mattress and grabbed her phone. She sent a single message to Mr. Langston. "They have chosen open war. Javante will announce the divorce next week in front of the whole family. Make sure my appointment as CEO is ready for the same day. And one more thing, Mr. Langston. Prepare a special gift for Ms. Ophelia. A foreclosure notice from the bank, since the deed to this house was secretly mortgaged a long time ago by Javante to pay online gambling debts." Imani put down the phone. A slight smile drew on her lips. Next week would be her final performance stage and the stage of her own coronation. Ms. Ophelia's ultimatum was nothing more than the detonator of a time bomb Imani had meticulously installed. Finally, the day Ms. Ophelia had been waiting for arrived. Since dawn, the townhouse transformed into a bustling party hall. Gold and silver balloons decorated the corners, and a red carpet stretched from the door to the entrance to keep up appearances and show the family they could still afford it despite her daughter-in-law's family bankruptcy. Ms. Ophelia had dared to spend her last savings on expensive catering. She didn't want Imani cooking today. She wanted her daughter-in-law to suffer in another way. Imani came out of her room wearing a simple navy blue dress she had owned for a long time. She wore no jewelry on her body, only light makeup on her face, but that simplicity emanated an aura of strange calm, as if she were not a victim about to be sacrificed, but a spectator ready to witness a circus show. As soon as she entered the living room, Ms. Ophelia intercepted her with an irritated, evaluative look. The middle-aged woman was decked out in a flashy party dress and a high hairdo. "Where are you going in those raggedy clothes?" Ms. Ophelia snapped with hands on her hips. "The guests will think we hired a new maid. Go inside and put on the catering staff uniform. Match your situation." Imani looked at her mother-in-law expressionlessly. "This is the best dress I have, Ms. Ophelia. You made me sell my good clothes last week to pay for Devante's cigarettes." Ms. Ophelia huffed. She didn't want to argue anymore because the doorbell rang. "Fine, but remember one thing. Don't you dare sit on the main sofa or mix with the guests of honor. Your place is in the back near the kitchen. Your mission today is to make sure guests' glasses aren't empty and immediately clear dirty plates. Don't embarrass Javante in front of his aunts and uncles." The family cars started arriving one after another. The not very spacious parking lot of the house filled quickly. Javante's gossiping aunts and arrogant uncles got out of the cars. The atmosphere became boisterous in an instant. As soon as they entered, their gazes went to Imani, who was standing like she was frozen near the kitchen door. The whispers of the relatives, deliberately not quiet enough for Imani not to hear, began to be heard. "Hey, isn't that Imani, Javante's wife?" whispered Javante's aunt, Ms. Ophelia's sister, famous for her sharp tongue. "Yeah, it's her, poor thing. Look at those clothes, so tacky. Before, when her father was on top, she was so arrogant. Carried bags worth thousands, and now, look, she looks like a beggar." Javante's cousin chuckled. "Why does Javante keep her in the house? If it were me, I would have kicked her out yesterday. She just depresses the mood," added another. Imani heard it all. Every word was like a sharp blade cutting her last shred of pride, but she remained upright, responding to their looks with a polite but cold smile. She knew the real show was about to begin. The climax of the commotion arrived when a white sports car pulled up in front of the door. Azaria stepped out elegantly like a movie star. She wore a deep red dress that enhanced her figure with sunglasses on her head. In her hands, she carried several shopping bags with famous brand names. "Hi, Auntie Ophelia. Hi, Javante." Azaria greeted with the sweetest and loudest voice possible. Javante, who had been busy greeting his uncles, ran quickly to receive Azaria. His face lit up, in contrast to the face he had made seeing Imani in the morning. "Hi, Azaria. Wow, you look beautiful today. Jovante took Azaria's hand without hesitation and led her inside the house in front of everyone, even his legal wife. Jovante's family immediately swarmed around Azaria. They rushed to shake her hand as if she were a savior goddess fallen from the sky. "Wow, looks like this is Jovante's new girlfriend. Pretty, elegant, and smells wonderful. Not like the one in the corner," said the aunt with a sneer, looking sideways at Imani. Azaria feigned shyness and smiled falsely. "Oh, Auntie, please, I'm just a good friend. Oh, by the way, I brought some small gifts for the uncles and aunts. There's silk fabric for suits and also watches." In an instant, the living room erupted in cheers. They were busy opening Azaria's gifts and praising her kindness to the heavens. Meanwhile, Devante approached Imani with an empty orange juice glass in his hand. "Yo, Imani, what are you doing standing there like a statue? Come on, refill my glass and bring something fresh to Sister Azaria, too. Quick, don't stall," Devante ordered brusquely, shoving the dirty glass against Imani's chest. Imani took the glass, walked slowly to the buffet table, poured the juice, and took it to Azaria, who was sitting like a queen between Jovante and Miss Ophelia. "Here's your drink, Miss Azaria," Imani said dryly, placing the glass on the table. Azaria looked at Imani with an expression of very contemptuous pity. "Oh, thanks, Imani. Sorry to bother you. You could have stayed seated. Oh, wait, if you were pregnant, you'd get tired. Ah, it's true you haven't even gotten pregnant. Are you barren, or is it the stress of your father's debts?" Laughter erupted in the room. Miss Ophelia laughed the hardest, slapping Azaria on the thigh. "Ha ha, you are too much, Azaria, but you're right. Good thing Jovante didn't have kids with her. Otherwise, I don't even want to imagine my grandchild carrying scammer blood." Jovante laughed too. There was slight discomfort on his face, seeing Imani humiliated that way, but the temptation of Azaria's appearance and wealth outweighed his conscience. All right, Imani. Go to the back. Don't spoil the view." Imani nodded. She didn't defend herself. She turned around and retreated to the corner near the kitchen door. From there, she watched from the shadows the greedy faces celebrating a party over her suffering. She reached into her dress pocket. The phone vibrated once. A message had arrived from Mr. Langston. "All teams are in position, waiting for your order to enter, Madam Imani." Imani didn't reply, just looked at the wall clock. Not long now. Let them laugh 5 more minutes. Let them feel victorious. The higher they flew in their arrogance, the more their bones would shatter when they fell. Ophelia stood up and tapped a glass with a spoon to get attention. The atmosphere silenced instantly. "Ladies and gentlemen and dear family," Ms. Ophelia exclaimed loudly with a radiant face, "thank you for coming. Today is a special day for our family. My proud son Jovante is going to make an important announcement, an announcement that will chase away the bad luck from this house and open a new, brighter chapter." All eyes turned now to Jovante, who stood up slowly, adjusted his suit, and put on a serious face. He looked sideways at Azaria, who sent him a signal of encouragement, and then looked coldly at Imani, who was in a corner of the room. Imani took a deep breath. It was time for the